So it's essentially blackmail using threats. In other words, if you don't pay me the money, you're a terrorist, and I'm going to come after you with God knows what. The Icelanders, though, have a tradition of standing up to the British. Back in the 1970s, there were these cod wars about fishing grounds, and the British would not accept the idea that they had to stay out of Icelandic territorial waters, and the British would send warships, and the Icelanders had some patrol boats, and eventually the British lost. They had to cave in. I hope it'll be again this time.
As do I. We'll be back after this with Webster Tarpley. It's the Infowarrior with Jason Bermas, prisonplanet.tv, Infowars.com.
Give way to Babylon.
If you're just joining us, it's the Infowarrior with Jason Bermas on this special Thursday edition. We are joined by Webster Tarpley, and the latest article is Iceland political leader calls for debt moratorium as government crumbles. You can probably go to webstertarpley.com and check that out, or I'll have him give the website out in just a moment. Webster, it seems to me, though, that even if the people do rise up and they do topple the government, really it's only half the battle, like you said. What's going to keep them from being swallowed up by the EU if that does occur?
Well, the polls show that before this crisis, there was essentially a small majority in Iceland, if I remember correctly, in favor of joining the European Union. But the behavior of the European Union, the Commission in Brussels, this guy Barroso, this tin pot dictator from Portugal who runs this thing at the moment, he was so obviously a puppet of the British and the Dutch, in the sense that, of course, Portugal was for a long time a puppet state of the British, used by the British against Spain primarily for several hundred years there. The European Union under this guy and his Eurogarchs and Eurocrats were totally on the side of the British and the Dutch. So if you look at the polls today, the standing of the European Union is it's a small minority. I think it's about 30% are now interested in joining Europe. Now, this can change. We've just had the bad experience with Ireland, right? Ireland had voted against the Lisbon Treaty. In other words, the Eurogarchs plan to reorganize Europe. That had been rejected by the Irish last year. Now, unfortunately, Ireland has just voted in favor of it. Mm-hmm. And it was scare tactics that did that. In other words, they were told, now we have a depression, you better come in, you better, don't block this. Of course, they were in already. They were going to stay in. But it was this question of the further reorganization according to the oligarchy. And Barroso made a trip to Ireland giving out money. He said, here, take this money and now organize the vote for me. He tried to buy votes, and I guess successfully, although there's still a lingering question of vote fraud about what happened in Ireland that I'm going to try to look into. So the Icelanders right now don't like this. They have a history of fighting the British. And, of course, you remember, culturally, these were the Vikings. I mean, that's who they were. This is Leif Erikson and Eric the Red, right? They're the ones who set out from Norway 1,100 years ago. They were the first ones to get across the North Atlantic, right? The first Europeans to reach North America that we know anything about. That's the Icelanders. So they do have some fierce independence. The attempt of the financier brainwash apparatus has been to say, don't lose your honor, pay the debt to the British and the Dutch. And, of course, the reality is if you grovel for the British and the Dutch and then become their slave, right, you go from Ice Save, which was this bank that they had, to Ice Slave, you become a debt slave to the British and the Dutch, then you lose your honor that way. I mean, that is the way you lose your honor. So I think there's a lot of ferment. There's a great desire in the population not to pay. But the political parties, be it the independents, who are the wild capitalists, the derivatives types, or the social democrats, who are the European Union, again, monetarist, neoliberal, because that's what that is now. They don't reflect the people at all. So the idea would be some of these smaller groups, like the Movement, which is a split off from the party that came out of these demonstrations, that could become a vehicle for mass support, as could the left Greens, at least the faction around this guy, Ögmundur Jónasson. But that's going to take some doing. But on the other hand, it's a small country. It doesn't take too much. I had one of the meetings I had there, I had 80 people. And in 80 people in Reykjavik is the equivalent of 80,000 people in Yankee Stadium if you were here, because the country is 1,000 times smaller. So think of it that way. If you can convince 5 people, it's the equivalent of getting an organization of 5,000 off the ground here. And there are people who are well-known national politicians. Again, Birgitte Jonsson and Ögmundur Jónasson are both very well-known and highly regarded. They're respected. They're considered honest, not part of the system. They could become the focus for mass support, and I certainly hope so. Naturally, from the U.S. point of view, U.S. tradition, you always have to be for the underdog, right? You got to be for the. You can't be for the favorite. That's no fun. So in this case, it's Iceland against the British and the Dutch and the IMF and the European Union. From the U.S. point of view, it's also essential. You don't want instability in Iceland in the North Atlantic because it controls all the sea lane. You want to have a nice, orderly government there.
Where can people find this info, Webster? What's your website, really quickly?
I'm at tarpley.net, www.tarpley.net. And some of these papers are at actindependent.org as well.
All right, we'll be back right after this. It's the Infowarrior.